This is Kuldrin's Krypt, episode 15, for May 8th, 2017.
Welcome. Welcome to my dungeon.
Our guest today is a switch and no newbie to the lifestyle. She is a player of several different kinks, including rigging, deep impact, consensual non-consent, a personal favorite of mine, medical fetishes, and many more. She is a co-founder and administrator of the Order of Avalon, an online fetish community built on the values of safety, education, and acceptance. Funsize, welcome to the Krypt.
Thank you.
Before we get into the Order of Avalon and a lot of the other topics that I'd like to discuss with you today, I'd like to hit you with 10 licks if you'd consent.
Go ahead.
How long have you been into kink?
Just over 10 years now.
Top, bottom, switch.
Switch.
Relationship status.
Owned.
Favorite position?
Oh, definitely doggy.
Favorite implement?
I would have to say a flogger.
I have to break the 10 licks. Is that to use or to have used on?
Both, honestly.
Favorite role play?
Gyno kink.
Fun. Favorite kink or fetish?
Favorite kink and fetish would be vampirism.
Favorite place for kink?
A park.
Strangest place you've ever had sex?
Burger King bathroom.
Something you'd want to try that you haven't yet?
Fireplay.
Nice. All right. Those are some, yeah, I like it. The vampirism, that's where I got my start. So I'm all about that. It
is very sexy.
Yes, it is. All right. So you said you've been into it for a decade?
Yep.
Okay. So how old were you? Officially, how old were you and how did you enter the lifestyle?
I was just 18, literally a week after my 18th birthday. And one of my father's old friends who had been in the lifestyle introduced me to an old guard member who then stepped forward as a trainer for me.
Okay.
So that's how I started out.
That could almost sound predatory. How did it, how was it? Do you look back at it as that or how did that?
Oh, no. I looked more at it as there was a guiding person in my life, almost like a secondary parent to me that saw what I needed and pushed me in the right direction. Oh. I didn't see it as a predatory act. I saw it as, here, this is what you need in your life, and this person can help you. So here's this person. They're going to train you if you consent. And I consented. So.
Oh, okay. And I asked that question really on behalf of the newbies out there that are our listeners, because when you mention the old guard, that is something that it as I guess a more modern kinkster myself, I have a lot of respect for, and it's not really mentioned too often nowadays. So can you give a brief breakdown of exactly what that term means when you refer to the old guard?
The old guard originated with people coming back from World War II that were looking for a different kind of lifestyle and looking to communicate. And it really was originally kind of at its base a homosexual movement. And I hate to bring that up, but that's what it was. It was men who were living a certain kind of lifestyle overseas that came back, and they were entering these motorcycle gangs and looking for the brotherhood that they originally had. And they were also looking to push the limits because they were experiencing a level of PTSD that wasn't openly known at the time and didn't become known for another 30, 40 years.
Right.
And still have stigma today, unfortunately.
Okay. I think that gives everybody a pretty good idea. And how would you say that compares to what everybody refers to as the leathers or the leather lifestyle, the leather kink?
I would say that it's really just the origin story of it all. You know, it's definitely evolved from there. The leather goes back to what they were using when they were bikers, and their old, you know, airplane jackets when they were in the service in World War II. And that's really the foundation of it. And it's just grown into a very accepting community since.
So you've got this old guard member of our community and takes you under his wing, I assume?
His wing, yes.
Okay. And I'd say that you are bisexual, correct?
I am.
Okay. Well, we may touch on that a little bit later. But for now, tell me a little bit more about this training. How long did it last, and what kind of activities did you participate in? You know, I mean, this is like kink college, it sounds like to me. You've got somebody really taking you in and showing you the ropes. So how did your kink college training go?
Well, it lasted quite a while. At least from my perspective, it was a little more than a year, but we would only see each other once a week, once every 2 weeks. It wasn't an everyday thing. So for me, it lasted what felt like forever.
Okay.
And we started out with small things, you know, taking basic orders, the kneeling, all of that.
So let me,
you know, it was.
Let me ask you a question on that. When you say like taking orders and the kneeling, and are you talking more like the Gorian master slave style, or just the basic?
Just the basics.
Okay.
I have nothing wrong with the Gorian lifestyle, but it wasn't something I've ever practiced.
Okay.
No, we wanted to work on what I was willing to do and find my limits, because starting out, I only had the vaguest idea, like quite a few do, of what the lifestyle was and what I wanted out of it. And then we pushed endurance on certain things, like how long I could kneel, how long I could have a certain stance, things like that.
Wow.
We were very progressive with where we built me up to.
What was your driving force in this to participate? And what made you really want to dive into it and push these limits?
At the time, I was dealing with a lot of anger, especially a lot of anger towards men. And I wanted to push myself beyond that. And I wanted to be more accepting of who I am, because at the time I wasn't out of the closet as bisexual, and I absolutely hated men, but at the same time still desired them, and still had desires that I found repugnant and violent, and I wasn't okay with myself or the things that I was wanting. So my drive was to get to the point where I could be happy with myself.
I often tell people that BDSM is not therapy. Do not use it for therapy. And when I say that, I should further say your primary source of therapy. Was that your primary use of it? Was dealing with these issues that you had? Or were you also speaking to other people about things, you know, whatever had happened? And I don't really want to, you know, dive into that. But whatever had happened that made you so irritated with the male sex?
I was working with others, yes, and I thought it was very important to have a support system in my life. But at the same time, I did feel that there were certain things that I could not speak to my support system about, like my sexual proclivities. Okay. So I used BDSM to help me accept that aspect of my life.
So it was not your primary.
Oh, no. It was just another tool in my life.
Okay. All right. So, and my point in asking you that, because that from talking to you off the mic, it does sound like an extremely intense time of your life. And I really want these newbies that we're trying to reach to understand that. So no matter what your answer to this is, as I always say, open communication. So if you disagree with me, please feel free to say it. But what is your feelings when I recommend that to people, that BDSM is not to be used as therapy or your primary therapy, that it can be a tool, but you definitely need an additional support system if you've suffered from traumas or whatever the case may be?
Oh, I definitely agree with that, 100%, because this is a tool, but at the same time, if you fall into one of the pitfalls of the lifestyle or community, you could end up in an abusive relationship when you were trying to seek help, and that can just make things so much worse. So you really need to use this as the tool that it is, or the lifestyle that it can be for you, and not as a therapy. Because as wonderful as the lifestyle is, we, the members of it, we're not trained professionals to help with those aspects. Some of us may work in those fields, but that is not our primary goal with this. So.
Right. Excellent. So you were in this for over a year, and was there a graduation ceremony? I mean, how did it come to an end?
Over time, we had both agreed that I was not meant to be submissive. I was meant to be a switch. And, 6-7 months in, we had started working on me learning to also dominate others.
Oh.
And learning to work with people to make sure that they were safe and everything was sane and consensual and everything that it should be in those relationships. And it got to the point where I had literally said to my trainer, I am ready to go out into the world and develop my own relationships. And it was agreed upon then that I was done. I was ready.
Now, do you still have a relationship with this person?
Oh, yes, we are actually still friends to this day.
Yeah, because it doesn't sound like a typical just relationship that ended badly. It sounds like it was a very good training tool.
Oh, yes. We are still friends. I still go to him for advice when I need something, even if it's day-to-day stuff. I called him a few months ago, hey, how do I change the oil in my car? kind of thing. So it's actually a very good lifelong friendship that we have.
That's really awesome. Very fortunate to have that. So many of us, even though I did have someone that introduced me and helped me along the way, it wasn't nearly as intense. Okay, so going back to you being a switch, did you listen to the episode that I had about what it is to be a switch and the community's view of the person that just wants it all, the greedy ones?
Oh, yes, I did.
Was there anything particular that really stuck out of that episode to you?
What struck me most was your honest mention of how a lot of people in the community still treat us, where we just need to pick, where if we find the right person, we'll just be, whatever that person needs. And it's not true. We are who we are. We are switches. There's nothing else. We can act as a sub, or we can act as a dom, but we will never be anything but a switch. And those needs for both sides of the role are always going to exist for us.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think to sum up that entire episode would be exactly that. So I'm really thankful that you got out of it what I was hoping to convey. Was there anything that you would have added to it?
I think I would have added just a tough question, actually.
Just
take it as a compliment. You did very well.
Well, thank you. If you do think of anything, please feel free to break in and let me know, because as someone who is not and trying to represent those who are and define it, I just wanted to kind of allow a switch to have the opportunity to voice any corrections, or, I want to get the most honest information out there that I can. So,
well, thank you.
You're welcome. One of the big things to me when it comes to switches that I find interesting is the dynamic in the male female, how they act, or their roles with different sexes. So some people that I know that are switches, that are bisexual, whether it be male or female, they will only top a certain sex, and then they will only bottom to a certain sex. How is your personal dynamic there?
I'm much the same. I prefer to top women and bottom to men, but I do make exceptions on individual basis.
So, as with everything in the lifestyle, it pretty much is meet them and whatever feels natural with that particular person.
Oh, absolutely. You have to take it situation by situation and person by person.
Excellent.
So,
okay. So, if you would like to, let's dive into the Order of Avalon. How did this thing start? And before we even say really what it is, because I think defining how it started will probably define exactly what it is.
It started back in January when several members who are part of our community online came to myself and the other co-founder and administrator, Purple Knight, with several complaints that the leaders of other communities were being very predatory towards them and that they did not feel safe and they needed protection online as well as in person when we could provide it. And Avalon was the fallout of those behaviors. We had one submissive in particular where the dominant, running another website of all things, came to her and said, "You're going to take naked pictures of yourself, you're going to send them to me, and I'm going to sell them online." And she said, "No, I'm not." And he said, "You're going to, or you're going to be off this website and out of this community." And it's really a horror story there because she did not consent to any of that, and yet she was going to be punished for it.
Wow.
Yeah. We've worked very hard to take care of that, and the threat to her person in that sense has been removed through the creation of Avalon.
So what exactly is the Order of Avalon?
The website has a list of features. We have blogs for our members where you can share stories and express and learn together. We have our forums where we are constantly learning and answering and asking questions of each other, trying to get more information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a chat room that has both video and voice features, which is something very unique. It was a little bit of trouble to set up. Poor Purple Knight, the other co-founder, actually was on the phone for 16 hours straight with support service to get that thing set up for us. And it is just amazing.
Now, with all this time, and obviously that's going to be an expensive feature. Is it a free site, or is this something that you...
It's 100% free.
Okay.
And we're hoping to keep it free for quite some time. We can't see a need to make it a premium or a paid service.
Oh, excellent.
Because we want to reach everyone who needs it, no matter what your status or financial status might be in the community. We want to be there for everyone that needs us.
Are you also a member of, the biggest Fetlife? I was looking on there and there's almost 7 million members now.
I am.
If somebody would like to contact you, would you prefer them go through Fetlife or through the Order of Avalon?
They can contact me however would suit their needs best. So, I'm there to help people in however and wherever I can.
So Funsize is your handle on Order of Avalon, correct?
It is.
And that website is just order-of-avalon.com.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And I will put a link to that in the show notes, and I will be signing up for that today. I've been trying to, but with work and everything else, it's been something very difficult to do. But I would like to say on a personal note, thank you. You guys have developed a phenomenal community there. And I obviously, since I am not a member yet, I have not been able to do the deep dive into everything because you do have to sign up for it. That's another thing. It seems that you have some precautionary things in there to protect privacy and keep the minors out.
Yes.
Okay.
We We wanted to have the safest possible community for our members that we could create.
Awesome. Well, it is something that I will absolutely endorse. You and I have spent a number of hours now talking about this, and I really have enjoyed it. And it is, to the listeners, I just want them to understand really how important of a thing this is. Fetlife is a wonderful community. I absolutely love it. I'm on there every day. You can find me at Kuldrin, just simply Kuldrin, Kuldrin. Friend me on there if you want. Send me a message. I get messages nearly every day from listeners, and I will respond. Sometimes it may take me a little bit, but it is very much a broad-ranged thing that I'm not going to put it down, but there are some things that I would like to change. And most of those things in my investigation, if you will, of the Order of Avalon, it's set up more to the way I would set one up myself. So that's about as big of a compliment as I can give.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Now, is there anything else that you would like to add about that?
I would say that the biggest thing about Avalon is that we are trying to create a community that's going to be quality and knowledge and security for people over necessarily the quantity of members. And that doesn't mean that we turn people away. It just means that the people that we have there and that are our biggest contributors are the ones who are stepping out and willing to teach and help others in the community, both online and in real life.
Just to clarify that, when you say contributors, you're referring to people bringing their knowledge, not their wallets, right?
Absolutely. We want knowledge, not money.
Okay. So you don't even have like if I wanted to give money to it, there's not even a donation button anywhere, is there?
Nope, there is not.
I didn't think I saw one. That would be my one recommendation, because me being the person that I am, I would actually like to contribute to that in some way. And we can talk about that off the mic, possibly.
Okay.
And moving on, I just got a few more questions for you. I've had you for some time, and I really appreciate your time. What has the lifestyle done for you, looking back over the past decade and going even further into your life before you were introduced to it? How has it really transformed your life, both for the better and the worst? I mean, point out the positives and if there's any negatives.
I would say the biggest effect has been the self-acceptance that I have found in myself and the personal peace that I have. And I think a lot of that is that I've found my balance, because a lot of people aren't necessarily willing to admit this, but your sexual life is part of what makes you a whole person. And you have to find completeness and personal enjoyment in that. So for me, the lifestyle is about finding that. And it's also about finding the balance I need in how I interact with others in my day-to-day life. If I'm having a hard day at work, I might want to come home and dominate someone, or I might be having this day where I just can't do anything right. I'll come home and I'll submit to my dominant. And it's all about the balance for me. And then as far as negative sides go, I would say starting out, especially even my situation where I had a trainer, there is no perfect fairy tale situation. You are going to fall into pitfalls, and you are going to need help and support, and to stay away from those abusive relationships that you can fall into, no matter who you are or what your role in the community is, like with anything else.
Right. Now, has that happened to you personally in the lifestyle? Have you fallen into one of those, not necessarily predatory, but abusive relationships?
Unfortunately, I've fallen into a couple of them over the years, and I was lucky enough to get out of them and bounce back and grow from them. So,
And I'm sorry to interrupt, when you are referring to these as abusive, was this physical abuse, a psychological, emotional abuse? What was going on there?
One of the cases for me was physically abusive to the point where I was hospitalized, unfortunately. And the other was a long-term series of psychological and emotional abuses that spanned years.
Now, did that start out, the one that actually landed you in the hospital, did that start out as addressing your kinks that you consented to, and they just pushed you past the limits that you were comfortable with, or did they talk you into pushing yourself past those limits?
It started out as me consenting to things that were soft limits, and they got pushed far beyond where I had unfortunately called safe words, and they chose not to stop. And I was in a position where I could not physically make them stop. And it was a very eye-opening moment of being more careful about who I vetted and who I was willing to enter into any relationship with.
How did you go about vetting them? That was, I just had the 3-part series on fake doms and that type of thing, but now these abusers aren't necessarily fakes. We're what I refer to as insta-doms, the people that watch the story of O or 50 Shades and all of a sudden, oh, I'm a dominant here. I'm a master of flogging or of single tail or of rigging.
Well, it came about, and my vetting process was that I met them in person at one of the local munches, and I had seen them there several times, so I knew them without knowing them. And we had gotten to talking a couple of times, and everything seemed kosher. They had friends in the community, but something I hadn't taken into account at the time was all their friends were dominants. This was a dominant person, and all their friends were dominants. There was no submissives who had anything to say about them at all, which should have been a red flag in my head. But at the time, you get excited with new relationships and when you meet someone new sometimes. And it's occasionally easy to forget that you're supposed to talk to everyone, that you're supposed to talk to people that have had scenes with them and played with them and know what they are like in those moments. That really led to me being charmed by this person to the point where I was willing to play with them, and I was willing to keep going back until it got to the point where I was hospitalized.
Since that happened and you've healed, hopefully both physically and emotionally,
yes,
was there any time that you had heard of other people that this it's hard to even call them a person when they do something like that, but have you talked to other people that this person had played with and found that they had done the same type of thing with them?
Yes. Not long after I ended the relationship, I actually went to some of my friends in the local community, and they told me, yeah, this person, this submissive, you play with them, you should go talk to them because they don't come to munches anymore. And they had stopped coming by the time that I had shown up to them. And I ended up talking to these other 2 submissives out of this, and they both said it got very scary, it got very abusive, not to the point where it had with me, but to the point where they were frightened out of our local community.
Did you press charges?
I did.
Okay. And
I had to press assault charges after that.
And I don't want to get too personal into that, but was there any justice that took place there?
There was. The person, I say there was, but at the same time, to me, it was not the level of justice that I felt was acceptable.
If they're still if they're still breathing, then I don't feel.
No, the person was imprisoned for 6 months, and they had to take an anger management course, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, it really, it was there, but it was kind of slap on the wrist compared to what I had to deal with.
Oh, that's I have a future episode that I'm going to do on BDSM and the law, And there's a very fine line there most of the time, but in that type of situation, that line doesn't exist. And that if we can stay on this topic for just another 2 questions or so, how long did it take in that relationship? Well, first, how long was that relationship total from start to end?
From the moment that I met them until the point where I had to press charges against them was 4 months.
And when did the abuse start?
The abuse started probably, we were about a month into our sessions in play. So it was about 2.5 months in.
But only a month of playtime?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, thank you so much for sharing that. It's very valuable information for these newbies and the veterans in this lifestyle to hear how quickly things can change.
Yes.
And I think, the average time in a vanilla relationship before abuse starts is about 6 months.
Yeah.
But because of the intensity of what we do and that rapid trust building, it's so much easier for us to be manipulated into an abusive situation. Well, like you said, within about a month of playtime, and that, I think from talking to a lot of people, that would be about the average. Now, do you have, is there a section in Avalon, say if I was someone who had been abused, is there any type of support system set up there in the Order of Avalon with maybe some information or something like that? Has that happened yet? I know you said you just started it in January, so.
We're definitely working on that. That's actually a project I've got going on the sidelines that I have not, unfortunately, been able to put up on the site yet. Mm-hmm. But it is something that I am obviously very passionate about from personal experience, and something I have to have in this community.
So you heard it here first, subbies. Coming to an Avalon near you. There will be an area there for I would assume information and mild support, because like you said, there, though there are professionals, psych professionals in this lifestyle, we are not professionals, so that would be something that they would need to go elsewhere to seek professional counseling for that, if that is something that has happened to them. But this can give resources, and I would assume stories of abuse. So and there's, unfortunately, what is it? 1 in 5 people will have their hard limits broken within the first 5 years of entering the lifestyle. And that is an old statistic. I would say that it's actually more than that now, given the number of newbies.
From what I have seen over the last 3 years, I would say that it was probably closer to 3 out of 5 people, unfortunately.
In what time frame would you
over
assess?
The first 5 years?
Wow.
Yeah. And that is not an acceptable thing. We need to take better care of the people that are part of the lifestyle, because we are those people.
Absolutely.
This is our community, and we have to take care of it.
And this is why I'm so thankful that you reached out, so that we can get this out there. Again, I know I've brought this up 3 or 4 times so far, but it is just an amazing things that you guys are doing over there, and I am excited to be a part of it, just as an outsider, as an observer. And before I can start, hitting up some blog posts and things like that, I may talk to you about moving my blog to the Order of Avalon. But anyway, we'll get into that later. My final question, and you touched on this already when we were talking about what the lifestyle has done for you, but you did mention it affecting even the vanilla relationships, and having a bad day at work. To dive a little bit deeper into it, how has it really made you a different person in the vanilla world?
I would say that I'm definitely calmer when I have the relationship that I need, when I'm getting those needs met, because they are needs like breathing and eating and sleeping.
Oh, absolutely.
I am a much calmer person. I'm better at my job. It's easier for me to deal with my family and deal with even day-to-day situations. Say if someone rear ends my car, God forbid, it's a lot easier for me to take that and say, okay, this happened, but it's not the end of the world. And I find balance that way.
And that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Being your authentic self, as they say, and you can't do that without that balance.
No, you cannot.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add, that you would like to talk to our listeners about?
Nope. I just look forward to seeing whoever wants to contribute and whoever needs us over at the Order of Avalon.
Excellent. Well, Funsize, I really appreciate you joining us today. And if you're interested in contacting her again, that is the Order of Avalon. It's order-of-avalon.com. She's an administrator and a co-founder, and zeppoJane on Fetlife, ZEPPOJANE. And I will put links to her contact information and to the Order of Avalon there in the show notes. Go to kuldrinskrypt.com/show notes and you can find it there. And that will wrap us up for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And Funsize, I look forward to getting into that community and being a part of that. Thank you so much for what you do there.
You're welcome.
And now those rules to love by. Rule number 1, safe, sane, consensual, and informed. Rule number 2, kinky, KNKI, from the Kinky app, available on all platforms. That stands for knowledge, no intolerance, kindness, and integrity. And the quote from Mr. Paul Young: submission is not about authority, and it's not about obedience. It is all about relationships of love and respect.